Welcome back here to the show. The second round of the NFL draft is currently starting. Of course, for copyright reasons, I can't show it on here, but I do have it up on my phone. No sound, of course, either, to live react to some of these picks in the second round. And just to add on, before the picks are officially made official and they are decided on, recapping some of the second round and what to look forward to before these picks are made. To end that first round, you saw the Carolina Panthers trade one spot up and sort of just change picks there with the Buffalo Bills and bring in Xavier Legette from South Carolina, the wide receiver. I mentioned it on a YouTube short leading up to the first round that Xavier Legette mentioned in an interview that the Panthers always had conversations with him, had multiple interactions with him, and said that if he is there in the second round, he would be the selection by them. And really, it just seemed like the Panthers couldn't wait. Of course, the Bills needed a wide receiver. They were picking ahead of them. The Chiefs needed a wide receiver, but they went with Xavier Worthy. I'm sure the Panthers got a little bit stressed out when the 49ers picked Ricky Pearsall from Florida. So, in that, how it all broke down, and in that event, they decided to move up one spot and made sure they get the guy that they needed and the guy that they really valued as their best pick. And they traded up, and now, with that being said, they got Xavier Legette. But people looked at the Buffalo Bills on the other end of this trade, looking at them in the other end of that trade and seeing what they would do now, because they're not really in a position with their wide receiver room to feel content about it, to feel like they don't need a receiver. Of course, they only moved it back one spot, but regardless of that, of what they do, people are still going to ask the question, and more so with the idea of them trading their original spot in the draft to the Kansas City Chiefs because of, their constant rivalry in the playoffs and how their results have not really panned out with them in the playoffs. They just lost to them at home, and it was just always a meme. They're always poking fun of them from this perspective of, the Bills are always in the best spot of trying to make their competition around them better. They won't fail at making all the teams around them better while making them worse at the same time. You saw them trade Stefon Diggs to the Texans, and in that, it was reported that they wouldn't trade Stefon Diggs to the Kansas City Chiefs of all teams. A little pettiness there, a bit of bitterness as well. They weren't fond of the idea, obviously, of Stefon Diggs being traded there. Even if he wanted to, they weren't going to allow it. But in the same breath, just a few weeks later, they trade away their pick for the pick that the Kansas City Chiefs had and help them get on wide receiver for them. In the end, that will end up benefiting them, similarly to Stefon Diggs, but with a rookie this time in Xavier Worthy. So a bit confusing there why they made that trade, but regardless of that, it happened, and now the Bills really kick off this second round with trying to find a receiver. I expect them to trade one or select one here to start the second round. And who they pick, they have a lot of options there to choose from. A.D. Mitchell is still there. They have a bunch. Robin Wilson has been rumored around teams and being a very underrated receiver there that could help out right away. You have Ladd McConkey from Georgia as well. It really just comes down to the fit that the Buffalo Bills are looking for here in this draft and trying to figure out what works best for them. I've mentioned before that they're in a situation, I believe now, that they are in a spot where it doesn't have to be all Josh Allen. I think it works, ironically, better for them that they try to run the ball, try to play through their running game, their tight ends, and just using Josh Allen, ironically, less than they have been, could work out better for them, and that could shape the idea that they have trying to figure out who to draft here in the second round. So regardless of that, that's something to watch out for. Cooper DeJean is another one who a lot of people had going in the first round, but he fell out of the first round and is still sitting there in the start of the second round, now underway. They have some ceremonial actions going on here to start the draft. No pick has officially been made yet. They're bringing on a few players there, I'm assuming, to announce the pick here in just a few minutes. But regardless of that, Cooper DeJean is somebody else to watch out for. There were some talks around centers. Graham Barton was selected to the Buccaneers at 26th overall. But you had other ones like Jackson Powers-Johnson was a good one. West Virginia center Zach Frazier was another one to have the talent to be picked earlier on, but they also fell out of that first round. So those are two picks, two positions to look out for as well, heading into the start of this second round. Not officially underway yet, but we can still talk about the second round and what to expect. They have the Michigan team on there now, with the college national championship trophy on there, celebrating it. The draft is in Detroit, kicking off this second round with a lot of ceremonies and a lot there to talk about. There's a ton of people there still for the start of this second round. Nothing really has been announced yet, no trades or anything. To remind you of the order of the start of the second round, you have the Buffalo Bills there from the trade for that wide receiver Xavier Legette to start the second round. The New England Patriots follow them. Then it's the Cardinals, then the Commanders, and the Chargers as the first 5 picks in the second round to start off. Thankfully, I think I could speak for everybody that 10 minutes is way too long for teams to make selections in the first round. Thankfully now, the second round and even into the third round, it's a lot less time to pick from. The Buffalo Bills are officially on the clock now. 6 minutes to go before they make a pick. People also, I saw, reporting on the Buffalo Bills and on just what their plans are in this second day of the draft, that they could trade down again and accumulate more picks. That isn't too far out of the realm of possibility for the Bills at this point. And to say that and go away from what the narrative is of trying to find some weapons for Josh Allen, they're going to have to do that at some point. To have the first pick in the second round, you have great value that you can find there. As an example, just last year, the Steelers being the first pick in the second round, drafting Joey Porter Jr., now probably their best starting corner on their team. And the way it all panned out, it worked out great for them. There is a ton of value still left there. And to follow the trend in the first round, a lot of offensive players went in the first round. I think it was 14 consecutive and 23 overall players on the offensive side of the ball were drafted in that first round. So I would expect and I would predict that to start the second round, there is going to be some offensive players sprinkled in there, but nobody touched on the linebackers really. Nobody took a look at the secondary players, corners, like I mentioned, linebackers. Defensive line is still a position of need. Defensive tackles, there's a lot of good ones left there, a lot of options to choose from there as well. So look for in this second round to start, maybe have more of a defensive taste to it. You have teams like the Chargers who could use more on defense. You know, the Washington Commanders are another team that could add more to their defensive side of the ball. There are some teams in the second round now that I'm remembering that have a few picks, multiple picks in this second round. The Commanders have a few. I know the Eagles have 2 in this second round, and their biggest narrative, their biggest need was on the defensive side of the ball. In my opinion, they added Quinyon Mitchell, and I was a bit surprised that they didn't actually trade up like Howie Roseman tends to do at some point in the first round, more often than not. But he didn't end up doing that, so I wouldn't be surprised if we see them package those two. If they see a player that they really like start to fall a little bit, if they could package those 2 second round picks to move up a few spots or a good amount of spots up, I wouldn't be surprised. I don't think Howie Roseman could sit still, in all honesty. So that's something else to look out for in this second round. A lot of defensive players projected to go. The Buffalo Bills, I talked a good bit about them. Looking at another team that could be affected a little bit here in this first round. Similarly to the Bills, and oddly enough that it is the New England Patriots, they also too need a wide receiver. They got their quarterback in Drake May yesterday. I'm sure they're going to look at some more playmakers, maybe on the offensive side of the ball as well, meaning on the offensive line, that they could look to try and make a selection there. So that's something else to look forward to. The Cardinals, another team that really needs a lot of help in a lot of positions. So looking at them, they added a pass rusher. They added Marvin Harrison. They definitely could use more playmakers. So you're looking at the top three teams, the Bills, the Patriots, and Cardinals, who could all really go wide receiver. And how does that affect the rest of the second round? It all plays into each other and plays off of each other. So we're going to see how it all pans out. The pick is officially in by the Buffalo Bills. They haven't traded back. They haven't moved or anything. I'm sure they've had calls, but the pick is officially in. So before I announce it on here and react to it on here, I'm going to send it to a quick break. And on the other side, I'm sure the pick will be in and I'll announce it and react to it on this show. So stick around and find out who that pick is after this break. You're listening to the GSMC Chip Shot Football Podcast.